everyone, it's Patty here from Deep Space Sparkle, and I thought I would just pop on today because I had a question today about acrylic paints. Now, I was just working with acrylic paints just yesterday because I got a new batch in, and I wanted to show you the difference between the different types of paints. Now, if anyone's listening, go ahead and let me know if the volume is okay, hoping it's good. But yesterday, I just got in these things. I had never seen these before, and these are called acrylic paints by Crayola. Now, I love Crayola tempera paints. I've been using them for a long time, and then I just happened to have this interest in using acrylic paints, and I decided to purchase these. Oh my goodness, I really like them. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with acrylic paints. Sometimes I have purchased large quantities of acrylic paints and I hate them, especially when I'm working with kids. But these have been really, really good. So what I was doing, I was making this Ted Harrison landscape painting. And the reason why I picked this particular painting was because it has these really flat colors. So this is a piece of canvas. You know those loose canvases that you can buy in the pads? So that's what I have here. And then Ted Harrison, he has really flat colors and they're really bold, and I wanted to see if I could replicate that with acrylic paints, and it worked out really well, and especially for kids. Now you have to remember, kids acrylic paint is going to be different than adults acrylic paint. So you have to keep that in mind, because a lot of us are artists and we're used to using acrylic paints that are really super nice. But we don't want to use those in the classroom because kids really just don't need them. We just want to provide a really cool experience for the kids. So those Crayola tempera paint or Crayola acrylic paints, they're just fabulous. So they look like this. Now I know this is kind of backwards for you, but it just says Portfolio Series Acrylics. Now the one thing I do like about them is, well, they apply really well. So the difference is between this and the tempera, because I know you're probably wondering. Tempera paint will dry to a really matte finish, but the acrylic paint won't. It will dry to a nice shiny finish, and that's really the key. Also, when you're painting, it's really thick and smooth. So when kids are painting along, especially on canvas, this particular paint works really well. It's not sticky, it's not globby, it's really smooth. Now, one thing that I like to use is a relatively kind of like not a really soft brush, like a brush that has a little bit of tooth to it, so that it can hold the acrylic paint, because this is not watercolor. Now, I also like buying these. Can you see this? It's almost like a magazine, and really you could use a magazine, tear little pieces of pages or sheets from your magazine, but I buy these in pads, and these are just tearable. What are they called? I don't even know what they're called. Like, you just pull them off like a watercolor sheet, and they're just kind of have this shiny finish, and you literally just use this as your palette. And then of course, when you're done, you can just crumple it up and throw it away. So they're super inexpensive. But someone told me that you can use wax paper, the magazines, so whatever you want to use. The problem with acrylic paints is that you don't want to put them in a permanent palette, because they're really hard to clean. And if you're like me, I kind of made the mistake one time of putting them in the palette and then thinking I can wash the acrylic paints down the drain. If you're an experienced art teacher, you know what happened. They kind of clog. They're basically plastic. Acrylic paints are basically plastic. So they clogged up the whole sink, and my janitor wasn't too happy with me. But so this is what you want to use. You want to use something that's disposable. Now, I don't know if you've ever purchased this paint. This is FaberCastell. Now this is a tempera paint, but the difference between the tempera paint from FaberCastell and the acrylic paint is not much. And the reason why I love the tempera paint from FaberCastell is that it really dries to a nice shiny finish, and it almost acts like acrylic paint. But the benefit is this, and you probably know this, it's washable. So acrylic paint, now I haven't tested this yet because I'm out of the classroom. I won't be starting to work with kids until next month, and that's a whole other story. But I don't know if it comes out of close. I have sneaking suspicion that it might be a little bit more washable than other acrylic paints that I've tried in the past, like Blick acrylic paints. They do not come out of clothes. If you do, I'm going off on a tangent here, but if you do use acrylic paints with kids and you got them on the kids' clothes, sometimes if you take a little acetone, like nail polish remover, and wipe it on the clothes or blot it, the paint tends to come out, but it's only for spots. Anyways, back to this FaberCastell paint. So this is a tempera paint, super easy for kids because it's washable and it kind of has the same properties. So a lot of people ask me, well, how do you use acrylic paints with kids? Well, the truth is I almost never did. And I only reserved the acrylic paint for the upper grades because I knew that they could be a little bit more careful. I knew that they wouldn't apply too much water. I knew that they could understand the properties of acrylic paint because basically they're just a little bit different than the tempera. Tempera paints are just forgivable. Like a 5-year-old, 3-year-old can use them and there's nothing that they can do that's wrong. And if they get it all over themselves, it's so easy. You can wipe it off tables, you can wipe them off brushes and clothes. So I mean, tempera paint for kids is like the paint of choice, I think. But if you do want to use acrylic paint, then I think the best one to use is that Crayola. But here's the other one. Sometimes if you go to craft stores like Michael's, you'll see that, you know, that big shelf of all of those beautiful colors, and they're acrylic paints. So here's the thing, and I wrote a post about this in Deep Space Sparkle about a year ago. If you buy the craft paints, they tend to act more like tempera paint than if you would buy like a professional grade acrylic paint like Blick. Now that's just my experience, but I tested a few out. I tested this Decor Art, and I think I did a Martha Stewart acrylic paint. And for me, they were very similar to a tempera paint, except they dried a little bit more shiny. So I have a feeling, and I'm going to test this out, that they'll be a little bit similar to the Crayola. So I purchased some Blick when I was in the classroom teaching. And I have to say that I love Blick products, but this acrylic paint was really sticky and kind of gooey. It was like painting with molasses, if you can imagine. And I didn't really like the effect that it had when the children were working with it. I think they became a little frustrated. So, hey Charlene, the really cheap acrylic is perfect for jelly plates. You know, that's a really good point. And you know, I've never used jelly paints, or plates rather, and so I'm interested in trying those. And I think you're right. Every different type of paint has their purpose, and it's good in one situation or another. So I hope this answers some of your questions on acrylic paints. If you have any more questions, go ahead and just write them in the comment section below, and I'll be watching the video and I'll post this on the Deep Space Sparkle page and I'll answer it. So, you know, I hope you try these Crayola paints. I'm not endorsing them in any way. Like, I don't get paid for that. I just discovered these and I bought all sorts of different colors, and I thought this is a really great solution, especially for art teachers who have to buy them in bulk, and you know, they're just a little bit more kid friendly. So I hope this helps. Hi Gail, thank you very much. We'll chat later. Bye-bye.